son was an explosives expert who invented a triggering device for dynamite that was patented and is still in use today. He secretly wrote science fiction stories, which I found in a trunk of his belongings passed down to me by his son, my father. The stories are frightening things, obviously written more as an exorcism of my grandfather's many demons than as entertainments or for serious publication. I used one of his titles for my second book, Under Scorpio, which, if you read the critics, should have been locked away in a massive old tool chest, as was my grandfather's original text. My father was a ranch manager, director of field operations, citrus division, for the Sunblest Company here in Orange County. Sunblest, during my father's tenure, made the transition from farming to leasing out land for development. Later in the 60s, they began selling off the groves outright. My father grew bitter as he watched his kingdom dwindle. At the end of his working days, I remember him as a tall, wiry man who still rode his groves on horseback. He was always tall in the saddle, paramilitary, and fierce to no particular effect. He stated his refusal to let the shrinking of his empire shrink him. But on the inside, it did. He grew harder and more knotted with each season. He moved way out to one of the remote canyons when he finally retired 5 years back. The canyon is called Trabuco, which is Spanish for a crude firearm the settlers brought to the county in the 1700s. My father now lives in a cold little cabin deep in Trabuco, a place constantly in the shadow of the haunted native oaks. My mother's side of the family accounts for a certain self-absorption I am prone to, along with an appetite for chaos and a distrust of authority that runs, I will confess, not very far beneath my generally peaceful surface. This made my first career in law enforcement difficult. She was a farm girl who grew up an only child, spent hours alone with her imagination and a pet goat named Archie. To say that she mastered self-reliance is an understatement. To my mother, most things in life were intrusions on her inner world, her secret world, the world she inhabited with Archie for those long years of childhood. She graduated from high school early, closed her eyes, and put her finger to a map of the United States, and found herself pointing at Denver. At age 17, she was living at the YWCA there, working as a secretary and taking an occasional job as a model for Daniels and Fisher department store. My father fell in love while looking at her through a store window one afternoon. 2 months later, they were married and moving to California for my father's work. A year after that, Russell Paul Monroe was in the offing. She lived out in a remote canyon too, one very much like my father's, until her death 3 years ago, exactly 1 year to the day since divorcing my father. She was 55. I thought it was telling that they divorced, left the Sunblest ranch house where I'd grown up, then each proceeded to his and her own distant canyons, ending up just a few miles apart. They each proclaimed happiness then, a contentment at being apart that they had never admitted when they were together. I want to think that they were lonely, but this may be a son's way of believing that his parents still loved each other. She died in her sleep, likely of an aneurysm, though I would not allow, because of my father's insistence, an autopsy. The idea of scientists sawing into the head of this intensely private woman seemed to us an atrocity beyond bearing. She had a long history of hypertension. It is winter now, but nothing is the same. Not here in my house with my wife, not 2 miles south of here in the city of Laguna Beach, where so much of it all happened, not anywhere in a county that once prided itself on Disneyland, an airport named John Wayne, a thriving weapons industry, they call it aerospace, and real estate prices among the highest in the nation. It has all changed because the summer of fear taught us that there is something about ourselves, something in us, of us, that breeds a terrible, terrible thing. The Midnight I first brought his name into print, was not our first. We have a track record of serial killers here in Orange County, but before, we always let ourselves view them as predators who inflicted themselves on us. You've heard of these monsters. You've read about the break-ins, the strangulations, the knifings, the close-range hollow points, the knockout drugs hidden in